Welcome to the Stoic Responder Podcast. I'm your host, Christopher Healy. As a special agent who spent more than 15 years conducting large-scale fraud, money laundering, and public corruption investigations, Stoic philosophy provided a mindset edge that became the foundation of my professional success. My mission today is to share those same ancient mindset lessons with you so that you can turn obstacles into opportunities and adversity into advantage. Time to muster up. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Stoic Responder Podcast. This is episode 93, The Performer's Conundrum. Before we get started, I'm going to do something I forgot to do yesterday, which is give a shout out to two organizations that I really want to support because they are supporting the law enforcement community. First organization is the Overwatch Collective, which is a nonprofit and podcast funding therapy sessions and supporting mental health initiatives for our first responders, our veterans, and their families. Their motto is one more is one less, and that, of course, means that one more individual we can provide life-saving mental health support to is one less individual who is likely to become a statistic. Please check them out, pick up some merch, make a donation at the overwatchcollective.com. And number two, I want to give a shout out to Blue Badge Coffee Company. The mission of Blue Badge Coffee Company is simple. They want to provide their customers with the absolute best, highest quality premium coffee that their money can buy. They take a portion of each and every sale and donate it to law enforcement agencies around our great nation to assist them in funding or maintaining peer support and wellness programs for their officers. Get some coffee, get some merch over at bluebadgecoffee.com. If you do, you're going to be supporting a great cause. All right, let me start you out with a quote from Epictetus. We've hit all the big philosophers this week. We got Marcus Aurelius, we got Seneca, we got Epictetus. We're covering them all. Today's episode, we're focused on self-discipline or the virtue of temperance, one of the four cardinal virtues. And the quote from Epictetus goes like this: "Take a lyre player. He's relaxed when he performs alone, but put him in front of an audience and it's a different story, no matter how beautiful his voice or how well he plays the instrument. Why? Because he not only wants to perform well, he wants to be well received. And the latter lies outside his control." Ah, yes, the performer's conundrum, as it were. You might play the most beautiful concerto. Now, a lyre, we're going to get into that in a second, but let's say you play piano. You may play the most beautiful concerto ever heard in your living room, alone, with no one listening. But then you get on stage and try to play the same thing, and the pressure is different, right? Because you want to be accepted, not just to play for the joy of playing, not just to hold yourself to your own standard, but you have all these people in the audience whose standard you desperately want to meet. And that becomes the real conundrum, because one of these things is internal, your perception. One of these things is external, everyone else's perception. So let's dig into Epictetus' quote, and I think it begins with us talking about what the hell is a lyre. A lyre is one of the oldest known string instruments. You don't really see them like jamming out on stage these days, but it goes back thousands of years to the ancient civilizations of Greece and Rome, Egypt, Mesopotamia. So it's something that was very common in Epictetus' time. And while there aren't many lyre players getting stage fright in the 21st century, the same affliction that Epictetus is talking about here, that musician might experience in the ancient world, can still possess any of us the moment we step on stage, seeking the acceptance of others. I experience this every time I get on stage, and I speak professionally. I do this for money. I get paid to get on stage and speak. And I still, I found myself on stage last week at a conference, and it's fine once I get going, once I start moving, once I get going. But that first initial couple of sentences, doesn't matter how many times you've done it, doesn't matter how many times you've been up in front of a room, doesn't matter how big the room or how small the room, there's always the moment where you say, "Who am I going to connect? Are they going to pick up what I'm saying? Is this going to have an impact on them?" There's always that moment of self-doubt. Now, I tend to give my speech to myself in the mirror at least once or twice before I get on stage. Again, it doesn't matter how many times I've covered the same ground. I like to check my cadence. I like to make sure that I'm on time, that I know I've got 50 minutes to give a speech, that I'm hitting it on the nose, and I'm not going to go over or under. I like to practice. But that feeling of practicing in the mirror is the same as playing the concerto in your living room. You're judging yourself by an internal factor, by how you feel. When you get on the stage in front of a room full of people, you start craving the approval of others. And that's external. So whether it's for our creative pursuits or professional endeavors or personal relationships, we're always, always, always seeking external affirmation and validation from individuals. In fact, we do it far too frequently, I would suggest. I know I do constantly. And you, if you're honest with yourself, are constantly doing the same. You're performing for a boss. You're performing for an audience of one sometimes. Maybe you're performing for your spouse. You're seeking external validation far too frequently. And we have a habit of not knowing how to validate ourselves internally. See, the obvious problem is that by seeking that external validation, we place our well-being in the hands of others. And how do we learn self-love if we're constantly outsourcing it to others, if we're constantly putting our well-being and our sense of accomplishment to the hands of someone else, a realm over which we have no influence, right? I can mop the floor, vacuum the house, do the laundry, fold the laundry. And I have to be okay with the fact that my wife might never even notice. She might not ever even say, hey, thanks, everything looks great. Thanks for everything that you do around here. That's external validation. I cannot control that, whether she notices or not. I can't outsource my well-being to someone else noticing my good deeds or the things that I do, right? You can't either. But we do this far too frequently, especially in our careers. We put our validation, we tie our validation to some external accomplishment, to getting a promotion, to being recognized, to receiving an award. I did this throughout my life. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see the stack of awards on the shelf behind me, and there's more on the shelf that's above it. I won a bunch of awards in my career for doing good work. But whether I won the awards or not, the work was still good, right? The validation comes from doing good work and presenting good work and getting the conviction and making the case and doing everything that you could do to the best of your ability. And whether or not anyone else recognizes that, whether some arbitrary official at the Department of Justice or at the local U.S. Attorney's Office recognizes that good work, is outside of my control. So tying my validation to those external sources would have led to constant frustration, because anytime I didn't get recognized, I would feel like cheated, like I would feel like I didn't stack up, like I didn't have value. It's a real problem. So instead of seeking validation from external sources, Stoicism encourages us to actually evaluate ourselves based on our own set of standards, our own KPIs, our own key performance indicators. That means our own values, our own principles. That means understanding where we sit in that rubric of cardinal virtues, of courage, of temperance, of wisdom, of justice. Are we holding ourselves to a high internal standard and meeting that standard on a daily basis? It's the three questions that Seneca would ask himself every day. What did I do right today? What did I do wrong? What can I do better tomorrow? Holding himself and judging himself every day, holding himself to a standard to make sure that every single day he was squeezing every drop of life out of it. He was doing everything that he needed to do and could do to validate his own existence, to be the best person that he could be. No one else was asking him those questions. No one else was seeking to judge him every single day. No one else was giving him, a grade on his performance. He did that to himself. Tom Brady is probably the most, incredible modern athlete at doing this, at holding himself to a high standard, meeting and exceeding it on a daily basis, knowing that if he held himself to that high standard, to that high internal standard, the external would eventually come. You can't seek validation from external sources. If it comes, it comes. You can only hold yourself to the highest of internal standards and allow that to help you become truly fulfilled, truly independent of that external stage and that performer's conundrum that we all face. All right, folks, let me leave you with one final quote, send you off into the weekend. Am I outsourcing my validation, or am I measuring myself against my own high standards? That is your journal prompt. I want you to write and think about that. Give yourself some mindset work. Am I outsourcing my validation to others, or am I measuring myself against my own high standards? Thanks so much for listening this week, folks. Next time you hear from me, it's going to be election day. So hopefully you're registered to vote. You're getting out there and doing your civic duty. Remember, there's nothing you can do about the external. You can't do anything about anyone else's vote, but you can certainly have your own voice heard if you're lucky enough to live in the United States of America. So get out there and do it. Thanks so much for listening. If you would like to support this podcast, the easiest way for you to do it and make a quote unquote financial contribution to this podcast is to pick up a copy of my book, In Valor 365 Stoic Meditations for First Responders. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, anywhere you get your books. It's also available on Kindle and Nook if you prefer to download it instantly. or you can pick up the paperback edition if you're like me and you like to highlight and make notes and read along on a daily basis. It's going to be a great resource for you. If you like this podcast, you're going to love the book because it's going to give you daily philosophy, a daily quote, some integration. It's going to give you a journal prompt like I give you here, or an action item to help you integrate the lesson of the day. So go up, pick a copy of that up if you can. That's what supports and makes this free podcast available to everyone. If you'd like to get this in your email on a daily basis, all 4 episodes directly into your email, go over to the stoicresponder.substack.com and sign up for free over there. On that page, you're going to get these podcasts delivered directly to your email. You're also going to get my weekly newsletters with Stoic leadership and personal development tips. And finally, if you could do me a huge favor and like, share, and subscribe this podcast so that others can find out what we're doing here, I would greatly appreciate it. Thanks so much, folks. Until next time, until next Tuesday, till November 5th, you are out of roll. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to subscribe, like, rate, and share this podcast so that we can spread the benefits of Stoicism to other first responders. It will only take you a few moments, but it can help us tremendously. Until next time, out of roll.